We're here with Jeff Goldberg on how to eliminate objections from your sales process. We start out talking about why continuously asking for the order 6 or more times is just really stupid advice. And Jeff shares with us his 5 steps to respond to any objection. You'll really like working this into your sales workflow. And then we wrap up with the best advice for you to remember when you're managing objections. This one thing will really make the difference in just your whole attitude in dealing with them. So please keep listening and enjoy. All right, we're here today with Jeff Goldberg. Now, Jeff, with 4 decades of sales and management experience, as well as speaking and coaching, you've had to deal with a lot of objections over that time. And I love the fact that you got your start as an encyclopedia salesman. I have to tell you, my mom still has our set of the Britannica encyclopedias.
A lot of people tell me that.
Do they? So
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of your favorite challenging objectives that you've had to handle?
Well, I think I get the same objections that just about everybody does. And I think there are only truly a handful of objections that anybody gets at any time. It seems like there's tons and tons, but really it typically boils down to your price is too high or I can't afford it. We are not interested. We're busy. It's always about the same thing.
Yeah.
In fact, I always say that if you've been in sales for more than 2 weeks, you've pretty much heard every objection that you're ever going to hear. But I think that's the good news, because if you've heard every objection you're going to hear, then there's no excuse for going on a sales call, having somebody say, gee, the price is a little bit too high. And you're going, never heard that one before.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me turn to page 53 in my selling manual. That it's great news because you should be prepared.
Right, exactly. You have the chance to prepare for it. So yeah, if there's only a handful, what do you recommend is the best way to prepare for objections then?
Yeah. So I get asked this question all the time, Mary. In fact, I get lots and lots of calls that sound like this. Hey, Jeff, heard you're a great sales trainer. Could you please come out and teach my people how to overcome objections or how to close business? And I always have the same answer. If you want to overcome objections, if you want to close more business, then you don't want training on closing and you don't want training on overcoming objections. You want training on how to sell. Because my belief is this: if you do all the other steps in the sales process correctly, objections tend to disappear and closing is the natural outcome of the sales process done right. It doesn't mean you'll never get an objection, but what you want to do is you want to get it at the right time in the sales process. And again, if you do everything else right, you tend to get rid of most of the objections that you're going to hear.
Okay. So can you give us a for instance on how you time where an objection could come up so that it's kind of working into your sales process or your sales flow?
Absolutely. Most sales trainers, and I often say that I go against what 99% of trainers will teach, most sales trainers believe that you have to teach how to open and establish rapport, how to gather some information, how to present, how to close, and then how to deal with objections and rebuttals. Mm-hmm. My preference and my strong urging to anybody who's listening to us today is you want to take care of any objections way before you ask for the business. And here's the reason. Most traditional sales training philosophy is that it takes 6 no's to get the prospect to turn themselves into a customer and say yes. 6 no's equals yes. Now, I can certainly live with it takes 6 different prospects to say no to get 1 yes. But I don't believe that if somebody says no to you 6 times, that they're suddenly going to say yes. I often equate sales to dating because I'm a single guy at my advanced years. And my belief is this: if I meet you, Mary, in a bar, not that I hang out in bars and I don't know if you do or not, but if I meet you in a bar and I say, hey, Mary, can I buy you a drink? Although, how would I know your name? That would be odd. Yes, exactly. How, young lady, may I buy you a drink? And you say no. And I go, come on, let me buy you a drink. And you say no. Come on, let me just buy you a drink. At that point, you're probably going to say, bouncer.
Yeah,
security.
A 2x4 comes out, and
Yeah.
A prospect
So
is not going to deal with it.
It's really not about 6 no's equal a yes. It's about uncovering the objections before you have a chance to have somebody say no. Because if I say, hey, Mary, will you buy from me in whatever way I'm going to ask, and you say no, and now I have to deal with objections, now I'm fighting an uphill battle. And I'm all about making life and sales easy, given that neither of them are. So I want to make it as easy as possible. So in terms of timing, I want to uncover whatever objections my prospect is going to have before I ask you to buy so that I'm not fighting an uphill battle.
Okay. So I know my 12 objections that I get from 99% of my prospects. How do I figure out the smart response to it?
It's more of a methodology than an actual response. The first thing is you have to listen very carefully. I call it active listening, and most salespeople use passive listening. They're not listening like they really care about the answer that they're going to get or what they're going to hear. They care more about getting their next bit of brilliance out. And I used to be guilty of that too. It took a lot of work to make myself really realize that the prospect is the important person in the transaction, not me. It's all about them. It's not the way I like to live. It's just what's true. So I had to get past that. So I have to listen very carefully. The next thing you have to do is confirm that what you think you heard is what you really heard. And I believe you do that by simply repeating back the objection. So Mary, if you said to me, gee, Jeff, I really would love to work with you and have you come in and train my team, but the price is too high, I'm going to say, wow, I got it, Mary. If I heard you correctly, and I'm not sure that I did, but if I heard you correctly, you said you'd actually like to work together, but the thing that's in the way is the price. Is that correct? So you have to let them confirm for you that what you heard, what you think you heard, is what you really heard. Okay. The next step is, once you got the confirmation that what you think you heard is what you heard, the next step is to validate them. Let them know it's okay. You've heard that before, because what most salespeople do, they put up their dukes and they start fighting. Guess who loses every fight? The prospect.
Conflict is not appropriate in a sales call, right?
Yeah, you can't win a fight with a prospect. Okay. They have the appointment, they can give it to us or not. They have the money, they can give it to us or not. So you're not going to win a fight. So instead of arguing with them, what I like to do is, once I've confirmed that I heard them correctly, I now want to find out, is this the only thing in the way? So if I heard you right, Mary, the thing that's in between us doing business is the price. If I was able to change the price, Mary, I'm not sure that I can at all, but if I was able to, is there anything else in the way? Anything at all? Because what I want to do is I want to find out all the objections. I don't want to deal with the price objection or whatever objection they're giving me and then find out they've really got 5 more. Right. So I'm going to confirm that what I think I heard is what I heard, that I'm going to validate them, let them know, that's okay, I've heard this before, or you're not the first person to say that, and then I want to find out, is that the only thing in the way? Okay. Once the prospect confirms for me that that's the only thing in the way I know how to, or the best way I know how to work through objections, and by the way, I don't like the phrase overcoming objections. Nobody likes to be overcome. So our job is to help prospects work through their objection. And the way I do that is with what I call a VPS, which is a verbal proof story. Okay. A verbal proof story is a story about somebody else, like you, who by working with me lived happily ever after. Or somebody else like you who had a similar issue, like price. I found a way to work that out for them, and then we both lived happily ever after. The reason a verbal proof story is so useful is because what you're saying is, oh, you've got that issue? Well, somebody else just like you had that issue too, so they feel good. They're not the only person that has that problem. And then you show them how you worked it through with them. And again, if you've been in sales for a while, you've pretty much run into just about every situation you can. You should not be caught flat-footed and go, never heard of that one before, or I've never had a situation like that before. So a great verbal proof story allows the prospect to change their own mind. Okay. Again, I don't believe you can convince anybody of anything or talk anybody into anything, and it's not our job. Right. But they can convince themselves.
Okay. So back to, did you hear the right objection? I was curious because quite often your price is too high is a cloak for what they really think, which is, I don't have time to deal with this right now, or, I've got 10 other priorities, or, whatever the real objection might be. So what is your recommendation on how to uncover the true objection?
Well, the methodology that I shared with you before is exactly the way. First, you have to listen carefully. People usually say what's on their mind, but sometimes even they don't know how to express it. So by listening carefully and then feeding back what the objection is, you should get onto the same page with them. Okay. If you don't do that, then you run the risk. It's the same thing when you put together a proposal. If you don't confirm all the information that you gathered before you put together the proposal and don't ask for confirmation, is that about right? Are we on the same page? Did I listen and hear you correctly? Then you run the risk of giving a proposal that doesn't make sense. And it's the same thing in dealing with objections. If you don't ask and feedback almost the exact same words to them on what you think you heard, you run the risk of dealing with the wrong objection.
Okay. So I can see, as you were suggesting, that when you're trying to uncover what else, it's almost like asking why 5 times. You really get to the root So if they have anything left to come up with, you probably got at the real objection at that point. Is that fair?
It's exactly fair. It's kind of like being a kid. Kids are great salespeople and awesome negotiators. Why? What do you mean by that? You have to ask lots of questions. See, everybody thinks, or most people think, that selling's about, let me give you a great pitch. Let me tell you my great story. And you do have to be a good storyteller. We all need to paint a picture in the prospect's mind of what it's going to look like when they have our product or service. So we've got to be good at telling stories, and we got to be good at painting pictures. It's the same thing with overcoming objections. If we don't listen carefully to the real objection and don't paint a story, paint a picture in their mind of how it's going to work once we get past this, they're not going to buy.
Okay. That makes sense. So Jeff, what is the most important thing you want our audience to remember as we wrap up so that they are effective right out of the gate with their objection handling?
Well, I think the first thing to understand is don't panic. I find that salespeople often panic when they get an objection. In my professional experience, and it's over 40 years now, is that just because somebody has an objection, it doesn't mean the deal's not going to get done. Okay. It's the same thing when somebody says, your price is too high. Or even better yet, can you do better on the price? To me, the answer is no. Yeah. The answer is no, and that doesn't mean you're going to lose the deal. So it's the same thing with objections. Don't panic, stay calm, listen actively, feedback to confirm that what you think you heard is what you really heard. Let them know it's okay that you've heard that before. You're not going to fight with them. Tell a great verbal proof story. And then the most important thing, which I left out before, is after you've done all those things, you have to, of course, ask for the business again. You must once again, every time you overcome an objection or help a prospect work through an objection, you must again ask for their business.
Okay. Makes perfect sense. Thanks so much, Jeff, for sharing your many decades of wisdom with us. It certainly is a great help for our audience, and I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mary. Anytime.
Take care.
You too.
Don't you just feel smarter already? I tell you, with all of the interviews that I've done for Sales Mastery, most days I feel like I can conquer the world. If you want to make sure to catch all of our interviews with chief sales officers, experts, top sales producers, connect with us on our YouTube channel right here. And if you want access to all of the resources that we have for you at Sales Mastery, you can connect with us right here. Our goal is to make it fun and to make it simple for you to stay on the leading edge of selling. So connect with Sales Mastery for the smart way for you to become your best.